Welcome, welcome, welcome. Your saltwater guide, Captain Dave Hansen. We have a really great guest today on the podcast. I'm happy that you're all here. I want to thank Promar Ahi USA for always being there for me. Big sponsor of the show. They've taken care of me farther than you can even comprehend. I've been with Promar for a very long time, ever since Kelly Girl caught that giant lobster. Promar and I have been working tightly together, and I'm very happy to call Promar Ben and Steve over there close personal friends of mine. And once again, I just want to thank Promar for the support that they've given us through this whole growth period. We are absolutely firing on all cylinders, gang. If you go to our Instagram page, it's climbing 400-500 new followers every day. We're at 101,000 followers over there, which is, for me, that is a massive number for an old man. I can't believe it. So, and it's all because of all of you. So thank you all very, very much. We got some really cool products to talk about from Promar today. The new Ikira jig. I got a handful of them, and we're going to talk about this little guy a little bit later in the show. This is a chance to do the slow pitch at a smaller style. This thing's being killer in the harbors. This thing is just on fire. We'll show you a little video. We'll talk more about this lure, but you can pre-order them right now. If you go to the Promar website, I got the QR code up on the screen. Go over there and pre-order the Ikira jig. These things will be coming out on the market, and they'll be in all the stores and everything on the 15th of July. But because you're watching this show and you're members of my website, you guys get a preview, pre-order opportunity to order these lures right now on the Promar website. So go check it out. I'll show you a little video about it here a little later in the show. But look at this thing. Looks just like a little baby Spanish mackerel, just an unbelievable little lure. And you watched it the other day. Justin was firing this thing off the side of his boat at the dock, and he was catching yellowfin croaker. You watched him. He opened the package. He put it on the rod. He threw it in the water, started catching fish right away. He did the same thing at Catalina on our live shows. We can't edit that out. It is what it is, gang. You take it out of the package, put it on your rod, throw it in the water, and it catches fish. That tells you everything you need to know about the lure. And that's how all the Promar products are that we use, just like the GT4 fluorocarbon. We'll show you a couple videos a little later in the show about all that. But there it is, man. There's one of them. It looks just like a little Spanish mackerel. One of my favorite. I know. Those of you in Florida and the Gulf of Mexico, you call them Sierra mackerel or whatever. This is absolutely a Spanish jack. We call them Spanish mackerel on the West Coast. I know. Don't get confused. I know. And I don't want a bunch of people telling me it's not a Spanish mackerel. I know what I'm talking about. Believe me. So relax, but leave those comments because I absolutely dig them. Me and my guests, we love reading through all your great comments because we think it's so fun, because we've only been fishing for a living for 50 years. So I really don't know what I'm talking about, but I do appreciate all of you watching me. It does mean a lot to me. So thank you all very much, and leave all those comments all the time. Let me know what I don't know. It's really fun to read through them, and we really enjoy it. But gang, this guy that I'm going to bring on the show right now, he's a close personal friend of mine. I call him a friend because he is a friend. He's worked for my family for a long time, and then he went off onto the private sector. But this guy is fish all the time. He's just like me. He goes on vacation, he goes fishing. He fishes for a living, and when he's not fishing, he's thinking about fishing. And when he's thinking about fishing, he's sleeping, going to sleep thinking about fish. The guy is about as fishy as they get. So, hey, welcome, Adam. Welcome to the show. Jump in here, buddy. Where are you? There you are. Come on in. Come on.
I'm here.
There you are.
How are you? Good afternoon.
I figured it out without Elliot helping me. Hey, Adam, welcome.
Thanks for having me. It's nice to see you.
It's a pleasure to have you on the show, buddy. I've been waiting for this day for a long time. I really, I can't emphasize enough. knowing you and knowing all the things that you've gone through your life, I'm super proud of the man that you've become and the guy and the captain that you are. It's an absolutely feel-good story, gang. If you could make a movie about this man's life, it would make you cry and it would make you happy and it would make you feel like you can accomplish anything. Adam, you've done so much cool stuff in your life, and I'm so happy to call you a friend. But hey, before we jump way out in front to all the cool things you're doing today, how did you get into fishing? What happened? Who brought you in?
So I started fishing with my father at a very young age. I mean, very young age, probably one years old. I was out with him fishing. If weekends he would often marlin fish out of Oceanside. That was kind of his summer gig, and I was on the boat, before I could walk. And I got to see it and got to be a part of it, and I fell in love with it right away. Fast forward a few years, he started, while they were marlin fishing, they were catching a lot of makos, and they weren't catching a lot of striped marlin. So a few years down the road, he actually started and put on mako tournaments up and down the coast. And in that, I got to see the industry side of things. He'd take me to the Fred Hall show. I'd be on his back walking through the show and seeing all the tackle and talking to sponsors. And that gave me even a little bit more, right? And then getting to see this tournament aspect of things and guys competing to catch fish. That was pretty exciting. That was certainly helped fuel the fire even more. I did a lot of saltwater fishing. I also did a lot of freshwater fishing as a kid too. We were at if we weren't in the ocean, we were at the lake. Pretty much every weekend we were on a boat of some kind. And that's what started it. I've always been enamored by fishing tackle, rods and reels, especially, and of course fish, right? But I like all aspects of fishing. Boats too, clearly.
Oh yeah. No, you have a beautiful boat that you work on, and you've taken such great care of that thing. And I can't believe we were talking before we went live here. You've been on that boat now for 9 years. That's an incredible amount of time. But so you were hanging out with your dad, going to the shows, doing the mako. Your father was super involved in the mako tournaments. Let me just say something to you. When Harvey Honeycutt and your dad, when you guys started putting on those tournaments, we didn't even, on the West Coast, we didn't even know what a mako shark was, because
Bonita shark.
We called them bonita sharks. I didn't even know. When we saw and this was probably in the mid 80s, early.
Correct. Yep.
The first mako shark tournament in Dana Point. I remember my good friend Kenny Smith, Spider, and we went over there to the field dock to see what the hell this shark that we had never heard of was, a mako shark. We were like, what in the hell are these guys talking about? Now, remember, there was no internet back then. We had to go read a book. And, if you guys know me, I don't know how to read. So we didn't do that. So we went over to the field dock, and I remember we were in his Baja bug, and we saw him bring the first mako shark in and put it up on the scale. And we both looked at each other and said, that's not a mako shark. That's a bonita shark. For God's sakes, we've been killing those for years.
How funny. My dad used to catch a lot of flack for having named that shark that or used that name, because everybody said it's just a bonita shark. What are you talking about? It's a completely different species. The ones we have here are but anyways, he actually went to New Jersey. He was out in Jersey and he saw a mako shark tournament, being put on there. And he said, well, that's the same shark that we're catching while we're striped marlin fishing in California. And these guys are having these big tournaments. I'm just going to, because marlin fishing was bad in those years, allegedly. He said, well, let's just put on a mako, a Southern California mako sport fishing, mako sport fishing tournament. And that's where they started. He did that for about 6 years, I think, up and down the coast.
It changed the culture out here on the West Coast. No one had ever seen anything. There was no shark tournaments back then.
Yeah.
Him and Harvey Honeycutt, those guys.
That was the start of it. Yeah, that was the start of the mako. And then fast forward to now, we actually have these huge, beautiful sharks that live here. We didn't catch anything that was that large back in the tournament days. I think the tournament record was only like 140 pounder, but we have 800 and 900 and 1,000 pound mako sharks off this coast. I mean, really pretty cool animal.
Yeah, our friend Keith goes out there and does it all the time and tags those monsters.
Yeah,
but that I just had to throw that out there because that was kind of funny. So now you're you're kind of hanging out, fishing all the time with your family, but you're a little kid. What sparked your interest in fishing for a living? Because God, we know there's no money in it. So it had to be a passion.
Yeah. So when I was about 12 years old, I just moved back to Orange County. I was living in Fallbrook at the time, moved back to Orange County. And in the summer months, I got dropped off, pretty much every day. I got dropped off at Dana Wharf Sport Fishing to go fishing. It was like childcare for my dad. He could drop me off in the morning. He knew I was safe, and he'd pick me up in the afternoon, on his way home from work. So I started fishing a lot out of Dana Wharf, at least a couple times a week. And I was only 12, young kid. Then, the next year I was a little older, I was a little bit bigger, and they asked me to be a pinhead. And so I started.
Do you remember who asked you?
Yeah. So it was, Donovan actually was the first guy on the Seahorse. Donovan was the ones who said, you could do this, you could work on the boat, make some tips. And, it was Donovan, Manser, Corey Hall. That's who I was fishing with in the beginning. Jeff Foreman. Even Mike would run the Seahorse. Your brother would run the Seahorse from time to time. And that's where I got my start. I was a pinhead for a couple of years, and then they changed the law, and you had to be 16 to be a deckhand. So I got, I was only 14 or 15 at the time. And so they brought me into the office, and I started taking care of all the rent rods in the office. Then a few years later was able to get back on the boats again.
And gang, if you don't understand what Adam's talking about, back in the day when I was a kid, Adam got in on the very tail end. We abused the child labor laws like you can't even believe. I mean, I started working on the boats when I was 14, and you worked 12 hours a day, no breaks or anything. That's just the way it was. If you wanted to work on a boat, you had to start as a pinhead like Adam's talking about. And there was no labor laws back then as far as working on the boat. That was just part of the deal. Nobody even thought about that. That thought never even crossed anybody's mind. That's how we grew up, right, Adam? As a child, as a kid, you looked up to the deckhands. I remember when I was a kid, man, I looked up they wore, back in our day, they wore hip boots, and they had a Dana Wharf Sport Fishing uniform, a blue shirt with their name on it and the Dana Wharf logo on the other side. And boy, if you could get hip boots and a Dana Wharf work shirt, you made it to the big time, baby.
Yeah,
and you didn't care. Like Dave Burris is saying, it wasn't about money, right, Adam? It was about being on the boat.
It was about being on the water. Absolutely. It was about fishing. When I was pinheading, I was good at fishing. Not to say that about myself, but I was good at fishing at a young age, and I was a ringer for jackpots. So they'd let me fish, and I'd scrub the boat to pay for my trip. But I was catching jackpot a lot, and that, I got to make a little money that way, and the crew got some money that way. So I mean, the money thing was fun, but it wasn't for money. It was more like the notoriety of actually, hey, I won the jackpot today, and here's a few bucks in tips. I can go buy some more tackle with it. And that's why I still am today. All my money goes to the tackle shop, it seems like. Or the boat dealer, or somewhere, right? It's going into fishing.
Right. And then you said you went into the office, and the reason we could use you in the office is because we cleaned the rods in the back room so people wouldn't see you, so we wouldn't get in trouble for having a little kid working in the office for us. You would be in that back room scrubbing those rods, running the gang. If you don't understand, the industry is really strange. A lot of us started out on the boats, but we went to the office. We worked on the rent rods. On a rental fishing rod, that rod has to be super clean. So you got to get all the scales off of it. Then you run the line off, and then you wind it back on nice and even. Put a hook on it, a little sinker, and then you're on your way, right? How many hooks did you tie when you were 15?
Oh,
14?
God. Yeah, thousands and thousands of knots. I can tie knots blindfolded, truly, because I've tied so many knots in my life.
Yeah, people don't understand. You 300 or 400 rent rods back in the day, every day, and every one of them needed their line straightened out. And backlashes. How many backlashes did you take out at 14 or 15?
Lots of backlashes. A lot of experience with a fishing rod at a young age. I mean, sometimes we'd have 300 rods to do, and sometimes every boat that was out for the day was a charter, and they were all rent rods. And we had to make sure that they were ready for the next day.
Oh yeah, people don't understand that the turnover back in the day too. Back when you were allowed to catch fish in California, which now it's taboo. If you get caught catching a fish, you're not a good human. But back in the day, you were allowed to catch fish, and the boats used to carry 60 people on the morning half day and 60 people on the afternoon, plus all the 3/4 day boats would go in. There were days, and Adam will tell you, that the rods would come in and we'd have to get them done in 15 minutes. You'd have to get 60 rods done in 15 or 20 minutes because the boat's going right back out again, gang. So the pressure as a child, you don't understand. We would feel the pressure because the guys would be in there. Come on, get these things done, right, Adam?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it teaches you a work ethic that most people don't understand. As a captain, as you move into the captain's world, and then you start to understand that all that stuff you did as a child, that was all training to teach so that you could go out and do what you do today, which as a captain on a beautiful yacht like you're on, there's not a lot of sleep involved.
No, not much sleep. It's constant work, it's constant maintenance, constant work, constantly up, especially we do multi-day trips. So in that sense, there's got to be somebody running the boat. I often get 4 hours a night. That's what happens. Then we catch bait all the too. We're all, we catch our own bait. So there's often many sleepless nights where you've had to catch bait all night, and then all of a sudden it's time to go fishing again, right? And you might get an hour here or an hour there. But it's so enjoyable when you do catch fish that you don't really think about the sleep or the lack thereof, right?
Exactly. No, it's a love-hate deal, a big time love-hate deal. But we got too far ahead. Now we're already on your yacht and you're doing that. So let's go back. You're in the office running rods, and then you turned 16, man. That's a big deal. Now you get to go out and be the deckhand on the boat. You're no longer a pinhead, right?
Yeah, I could be a deckhand. So I stayed in the office. I stayed working in the office until I was 18. I stayed in the office. I answered phone calls, but I was out on a boat. Every day off, I was out on a boat. I got the opportunity to go work for Rick Dosberg on the Fury. As I was getting closer to 18, and tried that for a little bit, but then at that same time got pulled over to the private charter side. And I saw that with Manser on the Captain Hook too.
On the
too, yeah, I started to do that, and I realized that I liked that a little bit more. There were less people. The boats were a little bit nicer, and we generally caught bigger fish, right? Because we were going overnight, kind of thing. And fishing for tunas, fishing for albacore and bluefin is what we were catching. So did that. Went to that private side. And within just a short period of time of me being there, got the invite to go to Costa Rica and work on a boat there. So when I was 21, I moved to Costa Rica on the Blue Thunder. It's actually where with Richard Hoffman is how I got to Costa Rica. I was there for about a year on the West Coast boat, and then got an opportunity to go and jump on an East Coast boat, and did that for the next 3 years. Actually worked on between Florida and and Costa Rica. I was bouncing back and forth. A lot of Bahamas too. But very, very thankful to have gotten that experience, because I was showing the other side. I was showing the East Coast style of sport fishing, in my 20s, early 20s. And then, a couple of years after that, as working a mate, I got my first captain's job at the age of 23. I was the youngest kid down there, youngest kid in Costa Rica running a 65 Viking at age 23.
Wow, Adam. Awesome. That's incredible. Somebody trusted you, huh? We lost him for a second here, gang. I don't know what just happened. You guys, can you still hear me? I don't know what happened. Adam, did you get a phone call or something? Are you there?
Yeah, I'm back now.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you got working on that yacht. That owner had to have a lot of faith in you as a young man, right?
Yeah, a lot of faith. He and the captain weren't getting along, and he saw that I was capable of doing some maintenance, some repairs. I'd fix things underway, whether it was a bait pump or a bilge pump or whatever, like water maker. I was capable of troubleshooting things, and And he, he'd operated a boat for so long. He said, you know what, Adam, it's your time. The actual story is the captain wasn't on the boat. I was the mate. We're pulling into Los Sueños, and the boat's on, in the first row. Every single boat in that row is a $3 million at the time Viking, brand new Viking, and we're driving in. We're coming in down the main fairway, and the owner looks at me and he says, "Do you think you could drive this boat?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I think I could drive this boat." He said, "Well, you better figure it out." And he walked away from the helm, and I ran upstairs, and that was the first time I got to drive a big boat. And I hit the dock. I broke a clamshell off the side of the boat, but it was an experience. He set me in there and said, "Hey, you do it or don't." And I was able to do it. And then shortly thereafter, I was doing trips by myself. He was sending guests down, and I was running trips as a 23-year-old. Later that year, he decided we should take the boat to Alaska. So I went from Los Sueños all the way to Alaska with the 65 on our own bottom, and just learned as I went. Just forced into it essentially.
I got to get back to this, but real quick, I got to show you everybody something. There were some people asking about what's slow pitch. Here, I want you to look at this video real quick. This is what we're talking about, slow pitch. This is Gil Hernandez, and he's slow pitching under the docks with this lure I'm going to show you.
Get out of there. Another follower.
So if you saw how he was working that underneath the dock, gang, you're basically just giving a little twitch, couple winds, and letting it settle back down. It's called slow pitching. Adam's very, very good at this. I'm not a lure guy, but I'm watching everybody using these things, and they are working phenomenal. I might have to come off the bait and try this for a while because this thing resembles a bait so good. But as you saw Gil working that thing, he's just kind of twitching that tip and then letting it free fall back, then twitching it up and letting it free fall back. That's how they're basically fishing that big bluefin at night on the slow pitch jigs, or during the day. They fish all kinds of different fish, amberjack and yellows and stuff. And Adam can talk more about it, but this is that Akira jig that I'm talking about. This thing is a phenomenal lure. There's several different sizes. I like the little ones because, like I say in all my videos, elephants eat peanuts. But this thing, it can't look any more like a Spanish jack. This thing just resembles it perfect. The lime green, that's the color of the Spanish jack that you want to use for bait. What do you think, Adam? Slow pitch, you like that?
Yeah, slow pitch is really cool. It's generally you're generally getting bit on the sink. Those baits flutter. They flutter really well on the sink, and they fall slowly because they're fluttering so much. So they're staying in the strike zone for a long period of time. Slow pitch is a very fun way to catch fish. Yes.
And it's been on the East Coast for a while, but now it's come to the West Coast. You got quite a few guys doing it, and they're very, very successful at it. It's a whole different way to fish. And I've talked to Mark Mills and other guys about it. Yeah. I'm so old school. It's going to be hard for me to come off of the way that I fish with the yo-yo iron and the surface iron and stuff. But man, it looks like it works really, really well. I fought the braid for a long time too, Adam. I fought braid for a long time, man. I was a monofilament guy forever. And then now I don't have one reel, and I have probably 200 reels in my closet right here, and not one has monofilament on it. Once you cross, and I know the same thing's going to happen when I start fishing this lure. Once you flip over, the stuff's deadly, right? Braid is the key.
You're very versatile. You're much more versatile with braid. You can change your leader. I mean, you can have one rod with 65-pound braid, and you could essentially use it for 20 to 50-pound tests, that one rod, and not ever have to change your main line, because your main line is already set. With your braid, all you got to do is change your leader, and that rod becomes very versatile, much more versatile. You don't have to have 3 or 4 like we used to in the past, where you had a 25-pound mono outfit and a 30-pound mono outfit and a 40-pound mono outfit. You can do it all with one rod based on what the fish are doing, or what their activity level is, or what size fish you're fishing for.
Right. And then changing that, like you said, changing the leader out is pretty simple when you know how to tie knots. That's the biggest thing, is know how to tie a knot. Gang, here's that lure. One more picture of it right here. They got pre-order. You get 2 in a pack for $15.99. And then if you use the QR code I throw up on the screen, you save 10% more on the lure. You're going to get 2 in the pack. I don't know anybody else that's doing this kind of deal for anybody. So check out the QR code I throw up on the screen right now. That's how you're going to get these pre-ordered. They're going to be shipped out on the 15th. All the tackle stores will get theirs on the 15th. You'll be fishing with yours on the 16th. Think about that. Pretty cool stuff. So check it out, gang. Go over there, grab some, get them in your arsenal. You're going to be very stoked. And Adam and I will talk a little bit more about slow pitch, because Adam is the guy that is always trying the newest trend, and he's very successful at it. And this bluefin thing that's going on right now, boy, if you want to, unfortunately, you don't run a charter boat or anything. You're all private. But boy, if you wanted to catch a big bluefin, you want to be with Adam. You got that fish pretty figured out, buddy.
Yeah, we've had a lot of fun with those fish. Growing up, I caught one. I caught one when I was about 17, maybe a 25 or 30 pounder. And never really thought, never thought much about them. And then all of a sudden 2015 came and there were 100 pounders off the coast. And it became my dream to catch a triple digit bluefin. I had to catch a bluefin tuna over 100 pounds. It was just something that I set a goal to do it, essentially. And I caught a 140 was my first big one. I caught it on a mackerel casting into a breezer, just a breezer, and got even more hooked on them, because they pull. I mean, they do pull hard, and I like pulling. And it just went, all of a sudden we're seeing these 150-pound fish and these 200-pound fish, and then I had a lot of kite experience from fishing for yellowfin in Puerto Vallarta. I lived there for a couple of years. And we brought that kite fishing here to California and started, targeting bluefin with the kite, and we started catching really big ones. And I fell in love with it. I like big fish. That's always been my thing. It's the biggest fish I can possibly catch.
Right. And you kind of, bass fishing's kind of whatever it is, if it swims, Adam's fishing for it. I want to show you a picture Adam sent me the other day, because he knows my favorite fish in the world is a calico bass. And where is that bass?
I'll fish for anything.
Oh,
fly fishing.
There it is.
Jigging, vertical
Look at that bass. Look at that calico bass, gang. That was caught at one of my favorite places to fish. The place has been fished forever. Look at the size of that calico, gang. And you had just got back from a bluefin trip, and then you left the next day on a bluefin trip. But man, when you're on land, there's no fish that's safe, right?
No fish that's safe. No, wherever I can go and whatever I can do, I'm going to have any time off, I'm going to have a rod in my hand. And when I'm working, I have a rod in my hand or a helm, or a steering wheel. I'm fishing. Yeah. I try and fish as many days as I possibly can.
Yeah. Your buddy Mako is wondering what's going on bass fishing. Well, there's a nice bass right there. Plus you do this kind of bass fishing too, right?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. That's my winter sport is largemouth bass. And then springtime, I start transitioning back to the ocean.
But if it swims, you're going after it. That's a beautiful largemouth bass. Are you fishing those things on live bait, or are you fishing those on lures?
Oh, only artificials. Only
okay.
Artificials. I'm fishing. I fished a tournament circuit I fished 2 different tournament series last year, just amateur tournaments. But that was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to do it in a different way, to make it stressful, I guess. Normally you're fishing for enjoyment, but when it's a tournament, you're actually a little stressed out, and it's a different vibe. And it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun tournament bass fishing.
Oh, I love largemouth bass fishing. It's so fun because you're always in a beautiful area. The scenery is phenomenal. Even if you're on Lake Mead or Lake Havasu, I mean, yeah, it's the desert, but man, it's a beautiful place. And there's so many different opportunities. And Cubby Paul's right there saying hi to you.
Hey, Cubs, how are you? Best wishes, Cubby.
Yep, there he is right there, our man.
Cubs ready to go bass fishing.
Oh, God, yes. He loves Cubby's like you and me. He loves to fish. He doesn't care where it is. He goes and catches those little stock trout. He's as happy as he is winning the Bisbees.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The tug is the drug, right? Any bite's a good bite. That's my favorite part of all of it. Besides maybe fishing rods and getting bites. Those are my two favorite parts of fishing, other than the fishing itself.
There's a couple largemouth bass you caught right there.
Yeah, the cup. That was a good day. We probably a 25 fish day at El Cap. That was back in March, I want to say.
And what are you doing right here in this picture? What's going on there?
Oh, that was a good cast that was a surface swordfish. I made a really good cast on that fish. Really good cast, perfect cast. It actually ate because they never eat, right? And I pulled the hook. Right off the bat. Within like 30 seconds of hooking him, I lost him. Those fish are pretty fun too.
But you and I, nobody that's watching, we're not allowed to fish for those. Doesn't Anthony Shea own all those?
He owns all those.
Yeah. Those are Anthony's fish. We're just lucky enough every once in a while one will slip through the scuppers and we can actually see it.
That's right.
But that's Anthony. That's his favorite fish. But yeah, it's pretty cool when you make a cast. Gang, if you look at that picture right now that we show on the screen, if you look real hard off to Adam's left shoulder, you can see the swordfish cruising, and you see Adam's cast. That bait just hits the water right there. And that's a perfect cast if you think about it, like we talk about all the time. You always want to throw the bait out in front of the fish. You don't want to throw it at his tail because they don't eat with their butt. That is
You certainly don't want to hit him in the head either, because you're just going to scare him.
Scare him to death.
You want to lead. You want to lead anytime you see a fish and you're going to cast at it. You want to lead him. You want to see where he's going. I know it's hard, but you try and take a deep breath and try and calm yourself, and make a good cast. Which I mess up all the time too. I backlash all the time when I get too excited. But if you can calm yourself down, look where that fish is going, and place your bait out in front of him gently. You're much more likely to get a bite, a positive response out of him instead of him just running away from you.
Right. And we talk about that a lot on the podcast and over on my website. When you're casting poppers or you're surface iron fishing and that bluefin's up on the top. And Adam, you fish a lot of bluefin, like more than most people can even comprehend, because you have a phenomenal owner that allows you to go fishing. And I try to explain to my guys all the time that when you're out there and you are in the gyros and you see that spot of fish, I don't care if they're foaming, if they're breezing, they're moving. They're moving. The foamer, if you slow down, like Adam said, take a deep breath, you can actually see which way they're moving. You can position the boat so that you're not running right in the middle of the foamer and shutting it all down. You get over in front of them while they're moving. They're chasing that bait. That bait's moving in a direction. Your boat's right here, and then you cast into it, right?
That's right. Something that we've been really successful doing is, we find a spot of fish. I'll slowly work my way into those fish. We don't ever run into them or slide into them. I'll work with those fish alongside of them and see and kind of let them get comfortable with me. I try to let them get used to me, and I go real slow, and it may take me, a spot of fish. It may take me, 5 to 10 minutes before we even put a bait on them, just because I'm trying to get I want them comfortable with me, or at least I want to know where they're going to go, or what they do if I do make a movement. But yeah, we take our time, because it's so important that first presentation is good. Because you may only see 3 or 4 spots of fish in a day, and it's really easy to blow those 3 chances by being too aggressive, or by going too fast, essentially.
Yeah, and a lot of times I watch this when I was doing it every day, and I know you do too. You see a lot of boats come in and blow it for you because they approach them from their butts. They come from behind them and they slide in behind them, and it scares the fish, and they scatter like crazy because they don't know. They just think it's a predator. They're getting out of the way. They're hauling butt. Now you blew it for everybody. Like Adam says, you want to pay attention, and we talk about it all the time on our website. Every single thing matters, and I want you guys to pay attention to what Adam's saying, because he's one of those elite guys that are on this fish all the time and paying attention to the way it acts, the way it moves, what it's doing, how it's doing it. And like he said, why go running in there and waste a cast and a bait and the whole thing when you don't even know which way and so many private boaters do that all the time. They just come flying in out of nowhere, don't even take a second to understand what's going on. Another thing, and I know you're the same way as me, when we see a bunch of boats in an area, we're getting out of that zone. We draw the boats that you and I and a lot of us drive, we draw boats to us because of the size of our boats. And then guys like, not me, but guys like you and Manzer and Grosbeck and Lasley, you guys have a reputation. So people are following you because of your reputation, not me. Let's be honest. But when they see you in the zone, then they all start ganging up and piling up on you. And you can scoot out of that zone and go find another, because you're like me. We do our homework. We pay attention to what the water looks like, the terrapin, the chlorophyll, the currents, all the different things. We have a plan A, and that's going to be our plan. But when we get to plan A and there's other boats there, we're going to plan B. We're not hanging out you're not hanging out in the group. Very few times are they going to find Adam, right?
Yeah, no, I'm not going to fish in the fleet unless, early season, we fish amongst the fleet. We'll fish amongst the long range fleet or the overnight fleet. We do fish in early season just because the volume's not there. But once there's enough volume and once they're showing themselves in a couple different places, we tend to get away from everybody, not want to be around everybody. There's just more commotion. I think the fish are more on guard. They're more alert because they got boats running all over their heads. You think you're going to be a lot more successful if you're able to find your own fish, or at least a group of fish that's just slightly away from the fleet. Just on the perimeter of the fleet, you're gonna have a lot more success.
And then another thing that we need to talk about is the code group, or whatever you want to call it, your friends that are in the industry. You got Ali R and you got Mike Laus. You got two of the best fishermen on the planet that are on your speed dial. You can call them up and you can talk to them right away and see what they're seeing. And you guys are talking all the time and you're putting together the puzzle. That's the key to doing this, gang. Going fishing, get as much information as you can. I guarantee you, as great of a fisherman as Adam is, he never goes bass fishing. He never goes tuna fishing without gathering as much info as you can, right?
Yeah, I want to set myself up for success before I even leave the dock, and these fish, especially bluefin, they move so fast. I mean, they're constantly moving, right? If you don't have a little inclination as to what they're doing, it just makes it that much harder. You're less likely to be successful. So yeah, we gather as much information as we can. Sometimes I gather too much information. There's a fine line. You don't want too much information because that can mess with you. You do want to, and I may get numbers, even if I get numbers for schools of fish, I may not even go there, but at least I know that there's something there, and that could be my plan B if I'm not able to find something on my own. But the first couple of years we had no network. When we first got up here, we had no network. I didn't really know anybody, but there was enough fish and there were enough people fishing for it that you could find it. You could find it. Now though, and especially early season fish, you need information. You just do. Otherwise, you're going to go drive around in circles and not find it. You could be off by only 2 miles. You could be off by 3 miles. Just a couple miles, you could be off and you don't see it. 3 miles, we're going to see it because our binoculars are so good. But say you're 6 miles off, and that could be the difference between a great day and getting skunked.
And you brought up a perfect thing right now to segue into my good friend Jimmy Kingsmill. He's been on the podcast before, one of the best set of eyes in the industry. You just had an opportunity to fish with him a couple days ago. Yeah. Jimmy Kingsmill is an unbelievable human, but he was the guy that brought this gyro stabilizing binocular into our industry. And it has absolutely changed our industry. Now, I know on your boat you have an Omni sonar, which is spectacular. 99.9% of the people that are watching my show right now can't afford an Omni because those aren't free. They're like, what, 120, 130 grand?
100 grand with install. Yeah, 100 grand probably is what you're looking at.
But if you had to pick, it's going to be really hard. You got a Omni or a gyro stabilizing binoculars? Which one are you? If you can only have one.
You're going to have I'm going to want the gyros. You're going to want the gyros, especially tuna fishing. I'd say 70% of the time that they're eyeball fish, meaning we're actually physically seeing them. 30% of the time they're sonar fish because they're just deep enough to where you can't see them. But those fish that are on the surface that you physically see with your eyes, they're the most active fish, and they tend to be the ones that actually bite, that actually make mistakes. Whereas you could stop on sonar school and sonar school and sonar school, and no matter how much bait you throw at them, they may not ever stop or even give you an opportunity. It's a great tool, but stable, gyro stabilized binoculars are gonna get it done for more people than a sonar. That's for sure. You have to have them.
And like Jimmy said when he was on the show last year, and he was just as blunt as he could possibly be. And a lot of you guys that are watching right now, this is going to piss you off. But if you do not have a gyro stabilizing binoculars, a pair of those on your boat, you are fishing for boats offshore. That's what you're doing, because you don't have any way to see what we are all seeing. You have no way. So what you guys are doing, because you don't have a pair of binoculars, and you can all say you're not. That's fine. We don't really care. It's not going to change what Adam and I do. But we're just trying to help you understand the price of fuel today. Three trips on your private boat will buy you a pair of gyro stabilizing binoculars. Jimmy has them for $3,000. The used pairs, the refurbished ones, he has them for $3,000. It is Adam, try to explain to the people that are watching what a life-changing, because you started out with field glasses like we all did. Then you had the Zeiss, and Zeiss was the poop. Let's be honest. If you didn't have a pair of Zeiss, you were like looking through my glasses. And then nobody even picks up the Zeiss anymore. Guys, we have stabilized. The gyros are the key. Try to explain to everybody what a game changer it is to see fish 3 or 4 miles away.
Yeah, and you may not even see the fish at first, but you did see some birds, and it may be just a couple birds, maybe 2 or 3 birds, or even a direction that birds are flying. You look over and you go, well, why are all these birds going this way? Well, it's because they're going to go find their friends called them and told them where the fish are, right? So you can use the binoculars to even just follow life. Without them, we'd be, I don't know what we'd do without gyro stabilizing binoculars. We're in them all day. We usually have 2 guys in them all day, and just searching. And we're looking for anomalies in water. We're looking for water too that looks strange. A lot of times people think they're just current rips or current breaks, where you see these little flat spots or these slightly tighter waves. But it's actually a school of fish, and there's so many fish, and those fish might be at 20 fathoms, right? But there's so many fish that they're physically moving the water around them, and that's what we're looking for. And if you didn't have binoculars to be able to see that, to magnify that image of that water moving, you couldn't do it. You're just going to miss a lot. You're going to miss 80% of it if you didn't have a pair of binoculars.
And you're looking, if you don't have a pair, you are looking off on the horizon because you see boats on the horizon, and you and your buddy are trying to decide, has that boat stopped? And now you guys have spent 5 or 6 minutes both staring at the boat on the horizon. And don't tell me you don't do it, because I was on my best year, I was on 146 different boats. I've been there. I've seen you guys. You're always looking at all the boats out there. Oh, is that boat stopped over there? Gang, if you have a pair of gyro stabilizing binoculars, and believe me, Adam and I glance towards those guys. We want to see what's going on. We can look at a boat 4 miles away, and we can see if there's 5 guys standing there and all 5 of them, their rods are bent. We may start to venture over that direction. But we can see if they're bent 4 miles away. Those of you on the private boat that doesn't have a pair of gyros, you have to drive physically all the way to them. And 2 of you are staring at them, and you drove by a school of bluefin that was trying to jump on your boat. But the 2 of you were staring at the boat that you think stopped. And then you get close enough and you find out it's the Royal Polaris, and he's driving around at 8 knots, but it didn't look like he was moving because you saw him 4 miles away. Gang, get a pair of gyro stabilizing binoculars. Save up. Start saving up. It's a game changer. Adam has $100,000 sonar, but he would give that away if he only had one thing to use, and it would be the gyro stabilizing binoculars, because they save us so many times. And they also paint a picture for you when you do scan the horizon and you look over there where the 14 boats are, and you can go, okay, there's 14 boats over there. One of them are bit. The other 13 don't have a fish going. So there's really no volume over there. There's just a bunch of boats fishing for boats. I'll spin around here off to the starboard side, and then all of a sudden you see that one turn that's twitching. He's just sitting there twitching. He's just 10, 15 feet above the water, and I call it twitching. He looks like a tweaker. He's just twitching right there because he's looking at a couple hundred bluefin underneath them, but they're too far down to push the bait up to him. So he's just sitting above them tweaking, and we can see that guy 3 miles away, gang. You don't understand. We're seeing so much stuff with those gyros, and they're a game changer, right, Adam?
Yeah, the total game changer. You know, fishing for me, it's about it's a puzzle, right? Every day it's a puzzle because it's always different. The conditions are always different. So I'm trying to collect as much data throughout the day as I possibly can to make a good decision, or a very educated decision as to how I'm going to fish, you know, or where I'm going to fish. So with binoculars, you can collect a lot of data and, you know, and make that intelligent decision based on all these things you've learned throughout the day. You know, sometimes it takes me an entire day. You know, we fish multi-day trips. Sometimes it'll take me an entire day to figure it out. And then the next day we wake up and we're catching them, right? But it takes the work, you know, it always takes work to get there. Sometimes we just show up and we land right on them, but generally we're.
Okay, Adam will be back with us in a minute. I don't know. He got a phone call. Oh, he knocked his phone over.
You got me, Dave?
Yep, you're there. We got you. You still there? Can you hear us? Adam?
You got me, Dave.
I hear you. We hear you. We hear you, but he knocked his phone.
I lost you, son of a gun.
Go back off. Let me call you. You hear me? Do you hear me?
Son of a gun. Let's see here.
Okay. He's trying to get back on there, gang. Sometimes things happen.
My Wi-Fi calling was on. Even though I was in airplane mode, my Wi-Fi calling was
That's
on.
okay. Just log off and log back on. We're all standing by waiting for you, buddy. Just get off and get on again.
Okay, let me get rid of this Wi-Fi calling.
Bye. All right. He got a phone call real quick. Gang, check this out real quick while we wait for Adam to get back on here. We're not even close to being done talking. We're getting the brand new GT4 fluorocarbon, high performance fluorocarbon by Promar Ahi USA. You can check it out right here at the end of this video. I'll throw up the QR code. You can save 10% on your purchase of fluorocarbon. Let's face it, we're all going to be using fluorocarbon every time we connect a lure or a hook to our line, because we want it to be invisible so that the fish will eat our lure or whatever our presentation may be. This is a clear fluorocarbon. It works phenomenal. Super supple, easy to tie, very, very abrasion resistant. And the fact that it's clear makes it almost invisible underwater, which is the key when you're trying to catch fish. And I don't care where. You're trying to catch redfish on the river. You're trying to catch bluefin, yellowfin, tuna, wahoo, halibut, calico bass. Adam, are you there?
Yep, I'm back, Dave.
All right, buddy. Cool. Do you use any fluorocarbon on the Castigo?
Yeah, we use way too much of it. My fluorocarbon bill is ridiculous. We only use fluorocarbon. We use mono for some casting applications. You know, for the surface iron, yeah, I use monofilament and just tie straight to the jig. But just about every other application, I'm using fluorocarbon. Even in the lakes too. I don't fish without fluorocarbon. It's more abrasion resistant for the most part, and it does get you more bites. It works.
And this is my theory, and you fish way more than I do now, but the clear fluorocarbon, because of the invisibility factor, is, for me, that's what I think. When I think fluorocarbon, I think I'm trying to make my presentation as invisible as it can for the connection. So therefore, I think a clear fluorocarbon is the key. I'm not sure where you're at. Didn't mean to put you on the spot, but I don't know. Do you use clear fluoro? Do you use pink or blue or orange or purple or?
It depends where I am, which is pretty funny. So
Okay.
North of Cedros, I use only clear fluorocarbon. South of Cedros, I use pink fluorocarbon, which is kind of strange. But I feel like that bluer, cleaner water that you find in Southern Baja, that pink works really well. And I use clear up here because, I don't think it's necessary. And I don't think you have an advantage using pink up here with our water clarity. I would shy away from it up here, in fact.
Okay. Thank you. That's what I tell everybody. That's what my thought is. You spent a lot of time in the Sea of Cortez too, right?
Yeah, a lot of time in the Sea of Cortez. Yeah,
I mean,
a couple years anyways.
When I need information, when I'm in the Sea of Cortez, I call Adam. He's right there to help me out and tell me where to go. I mean, you've been blessed by being able to go in all the places. So talk about the boat you're running now.
Yeah,
the Castigo.
The Castigo. It's a 1983 Jones Goodell. My employer, he's owned the boat for 20 years. He spares nothing as far as maintenance and upkeep is concerned. And we're constantly either beautifying the boat in some way, whether it's paint or bright work, or we're upgrading systems. And I'm blessed to have an owner that's willing to do that, to keep his boat in literally tip top shape, ship shape. I have a perfect boat that I get to be a part of. It's a big boat. It's like I said, it's a 1983. It's about 85 feet, overall length. We can sleep 9 guys. We generally fish 3 or 4 crew and 4 or 5 guests. That's usually our trip. It's usually the same guests every trip, just about. I could tell, you could tell me I have a trip in March, and I could look at the calendar from last year and know who's probably going to be on the boat. And it's about 10 guys that we, that get to come fish with us, but we're all so close because of it, right? We know each other, like we're best friends, right? I get to go fishing with my best friends every time this boat goes out. Pretty fun deal. We used to travel. The boat used to travel quite a bit. It was in Cabo for 15 years. But now we're not traveling as much, and it doesn't matter though, because fishing's been so good in California. Like, where would you go? Why do you need to go anywhere during the summer? We've been having a lot of success and having a lot of fun.
And your boss absolutely loves to fish, which is a huge plus.
He loves to fish. He was a pinhead as a kid. He worked on boats as a kid. He worked out of Davy's Locker, when he was 16, 17, 18 years old. And his dream was to own his own boat one day. And, he did it, right? He did it. And my dream was to drive a boat one day, be a big time captain. And here I am, right?
It's come a long ways from scrubbing rods at Dana Wharf Sport Fishing, huh?
Yeah, come a long ways for sure. I'm blessed. Like you said, I'm very blessed to have had all the experiences that I've had. I've gotten to fish in 15 different countries. I'm only 42 years old. I'm not a terribly old man, but I've gotten to see a lot of things. And I've gotten to fish for a lot of different types of fish, and that's what makes me good. It was always a goal of mine to be one of the most versatile fishermen in the world. I wanted to be the most versatile guy. And so that's why I chase everything that swims, because it just makes me better at another. I'm going to learn something fishing for one species that's going to help me in another species. I guarantee it.
And help out my members and all the people that are watching, because I talk about this a lot. I talk about it on my website. I talk about it on this podcast a lot. When you can cast to that boiler rock in South Laguna that you fished the other night, when you can cast to that spot over and over again and pull a nice calico off that spot time after time, doesn't that make you a phenomenal offshore fisherman?
Yeah, casting is one of my better trait, or my, better abilities, I would say, because of all the other types of fishing, especially the largemouth bass fishing, right? I'm making thousands and thousands and thousands of casts a winter. Being able to cast and put a bait where you want it is going to help you catch more fish. If you miss that spot by 5 feet or 10 feet, it's the difference between getting the bite and not getting the bite. I would tell everyone to practice casting as much as possible. I've been practicing casting since I was 9 years old in the backyard, trying to land my little casting weight on things. and put it places, perfectly position that bait or lure or whatever it may be. But yeah, casting is a big reason why I'm so successful, for sure.
And it does separate the fisherman from the wisherman, is that cast ability. And you and I, the other night when I talked you into coming on the show with me, we were talking about that fish that I'm showing right now on the screen, that big cow, my very most favorite fish to fish for. Cubby Paul's just made a comment at him. You're already a legend, flat out.
I wish, yeah.
Well,
one day.
That's
Thank
what
you, Cubby. Thank you, Cubby. Love you, brother.
Us old timers in the industry, we have a ton of respect for you. I'm telling you. And
Thanks,
you and I were talking about that calico, and you were talking how if you didn't hit that black spot on that boiler rock, I mean, if you were 2 feet to the left or 2 feet to the right, you didn't get bit. Gang, when I tell you all to learn how to catch calico bass, I'm not telling you that because I don't want you going offshore. I want you to be able to place your bait so you can catch a fish like Adam has right there. If you can catch that fish consistently, that offshore thing is going to be so easy, right? It's going to be super. You're going to be blown away at how easy it is to throw a bait on a foamer when you can put a bait on that rock, right, Adam?
That's right. And even just learning how to fish is, calico bass are a great segue to every fish, because it teaches you how to fly line of a live bait, right? And knowing how to manipulate the spool to get that sardine to swim away from you, or knowing when to just get that bait out of the water because you need a new one. You learn all of those things fishing for calico bass, because that's what they teach you, right? That's what they taught me. Thousands and thousands of calico bass are what made me a good offshore fisherman eventually.
Right. And if you talk to any of the old time, you talk to Frank Lopresti, or my dad when he was still with us, those guys tell you their favorite fishing is calico bass fishing. Frank Lopresti fished like you all over the world. He can go anywhere he wants, but he still remembers calico bass is it. That is the key. And so many of my members on my website, when they sign up, they're like, I just want to catch a yellowtail and a bluefin. And I'm like, how long have you been fishing? Well, I just started last week. Well, gang, it doesn't work like that. You go anchor up on a spot and catch calico bass until you can't not catch them. If you can get to the point, and I'm not talking 8-inch calico bass, I'm talking quality 18, 24-inch calico bass, bait after bait after bait. It's going to absolutely make everything else so much easier. That cast that you made to that swordfish, that wasn't because you didn't practice. You just didn't walk up to the bow and throw a bait first time and land it in front of that swordfish's face, right?
No, that's hundreds of thousands of casts in my life, probably. That's how much practice, right? It's a fundamental. It's a fishing fundamental. I think you can learn a lot of good fundamentals by fishing the coast, by fishing calicos. Absolutely. And once you have your fundamentals down, then you can start taking it other places, right? And then it becomes a lot easier to do things that are new because you have such a strong base that you're working from, right? Just a good fishing base, which means casting, tying good knots, you selecting the right size hook, understanding if there's too much current or too little current, or how you could change your weight and maybe still fish that area, just by making a small change to your presentation, let's say, in order to still be able to fish in that, right? And then it translates to every other species along the way.
Absolutely. And if you look at that swordfish right here on the picture we have up on the screen, that's basically you're throwing a bait at that boiler rock in Laguna.
Absolutely.
You know which side of the boiler rock you're going to get bit on. And it's the same thing. You're casting that bait, but your head's going back to the day you caught that calico bass and you knew where to throw the bait. And all that comes from fishing calico bass. I always say that's the very best fish for all of you to learn. I know a lot of you, I don't like to fish bass. Well, that's because you know why they don't like to fish bass, Adam?
Because they haven't been successful at it. Yeah.
They don't know how to cast.
Yeah.
They don't know how to cast. They want to go offshore, pull 10 feet of line off the reel, drop the bait in the water, and catch a tuna. So many people tell me all the time, I only like to fish tuna. And I'm like, well, then you need to move out of California.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look at me. I spend months just fishing at the lake during the winter. And like you said, I can go anywhere in the world, fish with whoever I want, or go spend a winter in whatever country. But green bass fishing, largemouth bass fishing, makes me a better saltwater fisherman. And besides just enjoying it, right? I love bass fishing, but it makes me a better saltwater fisherman in the summertime, because I'm just tuned in, right? I've been fishing, and even though there's these small little 3-pound fish, it does translate to a 200-pound tuna later on in the year, and that's why I do it. There's a lot of captains from California that fish largemouth bass in the winter. I was surprised. John Grabowski, he's down there. The former owner of the Qualifier, he's out there all the time. Bruce Smith from the Shogun, he's on the water. I run into these guys all the time down there fishing all winter long. They've caught every big tuna in the world, marlin, everything they've caught, and they're still out there green bass fishing during the winter months, right?
Because at the end of the day, they enjoy, just like you or me, we enjoy fishing, just like Cubby. Cubby's one of the Bisbees. Cubby's caught every giant fish in the world, but Cubby loves to fish. He's going to go like you, me, Cubby. If we can pee a puddle, we're going to fish in that puddle. We're just going to fish. We're fishermen.
Right.
And when you guys right away, when you say, I just want a big tuna or I just want a yellowtail, then I already understand that you don't really enjoy fishing. You got to fish for what's biting at the time. Like Adam keeps talking about winter time. He's going largemouth bass fishing because that's what's biting. Does Adam want to catch a giant bluefin? Absolutely. Is he going to go fish for them when they're not biting? Absolutely not. He's not, okay? So many people miss out on this phenomenal fishing on the coast. That big giant calico bass you caught. You don't have to tell them the exact spot, but tell them where you were.
I was just north of Dana Point, just right before you get to South Laguna. There's a couple rocks on the beach in Monarch Beach, and if you know how to position your boat and get tight enough and be safe about it, you can go catch a big one like that right now. They're spawning. You can go catch a giant calico bass right now if you can cast and if you can control your boat and stay safe. You can go catch a big one right now on the beach, essentially.
Yeah, Cubby Paul and I, when I used to live in Dana Point, Cubby would come up from the Cape, and the first thing he'd do is call me up and he'd say, "Can we go calico bass fishing?" And he's spent his whole life working down here in Cabo, and when he gets home, he wants to go calico bass fishing in the wintertime. He wants to go catch stock trout. He wants to go catch a largemouth bass. He loves to fish. He got an 11-pound calico bass at Seal Rocks, just below the San Clemente Pier. That place has been fished 100 years every single day. But if you know how to cast and you know how to make your bait fall in the water in the right spot, you get rewarded with calicos like what Adam's holding up. And if you don't like that fish Adam's holding up right there, if that doesn't turn you on and then you really do not like fishing. Yep. So the best thing for you to do is sell your boat and go golf. Golf is an epic sport for people who don't enjoy fishing. Me and Adam get on the golf course. You know what we're doing? We're looking for the pond. Where's that pond? Because
where's that water hazard?
Largemouth bass in that pond on the golf course. That's what golfing's for, to find the ponds on the golf course, man.
That's right.
But you're listening to Adam, and he's told you he can fish anywhere. I try to explain to all my members on my bitchin' website how important this calico bass thing is. I'd hate to live in a world where we lose that part of it. And with what's going on right now, there's so much going on. We all got to get involved with CCA. We all got to start going to these meetings. Adam was with me at the dinner on Thursday night. Adam showed up. A lot of the industry doesn't show up to these events. Adam came to the event. Yeah, tickets were $175 a person for dinner, but every dime of it goes to keeping fishing open because Adam doesn't want to live in a world where he can't go fishing.
Yeah,
right?
I know what I do. And that's the most organized group that's fighting for us right now. And you need to support them, truly.
And we need to show up, gang. It was so easy for them to close that white sturgeon. I don't know if you know about that, Adam, but 2 weeks ago they closed the white sturgeon.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever caught one. I never caught one. Now I can't even fish for them. Now we can't even go do it, even if we wanted to, because they closed it because no one showed up to the meeting. And they looked and they were like, well, if the guys that do it for a living don't care, this is going to be easy. Check, done, no more. Can't fish for those. This calico bass that we're looking at right here, when Adam and I were kids, you could catch 12-inch bass. You could have 10 of them. They taste just like food. They do. They taste like food.
Yeah, good.
They're not endangered by any stretch of the imagination. But then a bass hugger got all emotional one day and was like, Adam doesn't need 10. Dave Hansen doesn't need 10. So they took them from 10 to 5. And everybody cheered and they were like, yeah, it's about time. And gang, you don't understand. Just because you don't like something doesn't mean nobody else can do it. So you got to take the emotion out of this. Calico bass have never been commercially fished, ever. Adam, you jump in the water all the time. You put a mask on, you go in the water, I go in the water. You get in the water and you look and there's zillions of them. Absolutely zillions of them. The reason you guys don't catch them is because you don't know how to cast. It's not because there's no bass, but you were like, there's no bass because I can't catch them. Let's close it. The hell with Dave Hansen. The hell with Adam Cargill. We don't matter. The emotional guy, the bass hugger that doesn't know how to fish, he was able to close that thing. And we're so close right now to having it a zero take. People, you don't even understand. And I don't care if you like to eat them or not. I do. I love to eat them. That fish right there would have made me a phenomenal amount of tacos. And Adam said he threw it back. I know exactly where he threw it back at. And when I get back up into Southern California, I'm going to go make it into tacos.
Cool.
But I'm just trying to tell you, gang, we got to stop helping them close stuff. We got to stop. You guys that are posting all this silly stuff about this fishery, we got to help them stop closing everything. Nothing needs to be closed, right, Adam?
Closed.
We don't need to close anything else. You hear us?
Yeah, nothing needs to be closed. Nothing needs to be closed. I mean, so we can manage things better. I mean, but manage it with sound science, not just manage it with emotion, right? I'm all for management of things, but there's got to be some science behind the management. It can't just be because people feel like doing things.
Right, and it's an emotional closure. The calico bass, sand bass, and spotted bay bass closure went down on the exact same day at the exact same time, and that tells you right there that there was no science done at all, because spotted bay bass do not live where the calicos are.
Yeah,
Sand bass migrate up from Mexico. Adam, you ever fished off of Mag Bay?
I have fished quite a bit off Mag Bay, but not as much inshore as I would like. I got to do a little more inshore down there.
But when you drop a jig down in 40, 50 feet of water on a rock, if you get through the yellowtail and the thing hits the bottom, you get a big giant sand bass, and there's zillions of them, and they migrate up into Southern California, but now they want to take away our sand bass. It's just absolutely ridiculous, gang. So be very careful when you're on one of the social media platforms and you're talking about, if you see Adam or myself or maybe a good fisherman that catches a nice fish, and then you jump on there and say, oh, you know, I would never have taken that. Keep your mouth shut. We don't need to know that you wouldn't take it, because the people that are trying to close everything, they're watching everything we do. And if we don't get united, and if we don't start to get united, we're not going to be able to fish in California, which just, I can't even comprehend that. You'd have to bring the boat back down here to Cabo, and you don't want to do that.
Yeah, I mean, we would, but I would hate to lose. I've already lost all the places I fished as a child, right? Because I grew up in Laguna. I've already lost that fishery. We'd get out of high school, and if there was no surf, we'd run down to the beach and go spear a halibut, or spear a corbina, or whatever. We were going to go grab a lobster. And I don't get to do any of those things anymore. And my kids aren't going to have the chance to go do any of those things anymore. It's pretty sad times. I would hate to lose anything else. I've already lost my hometown as far as fishing goes.
And they're on a mission to close everything. That's kind of what they want to do. They do not want us fishing, gang. So you got to join ccacalifornia.org. We need all of you to help us. We need you to jump in and get involved. It's super important. Just go to CCA or go to ccacalifornia.org. Go or use this QR code if you're not. But gang, I need all of you that are listening on Spotify and Apple, and we need everybody. And I don't care what state you're in, what country you're in. We need everybody to be involved. And if you don't like to catch fish, that's okay. You can still help us to keep fishing open, gang. It's a control thing right now. It has nothing to do with fish. And we had our good friend Tommy Gomes on the show, Adam, about, I don't know, 5 or 6 months ago, and he said something that I never even knew. The United States of America is the #1 consumer of seafood in the world.
Wow.
We're the only country in the world that's not allowed to harvest our own seafood. All of our seafood comes from foreign nations that practice zero sustainability. They practice zero sustainability, but they slap a sticker on that bag of fish at Costco and they say that it was sustainable. But if you look at it, the country of origin, you're not going to see any fish at Costco that came from America. You're not going to see any U.S. fish because they're not selling U.S. fish. They're selling it at the local fish markets. And it's a very high price fish because of the fact that they make us jump through so many hoops to catch our own fish in America. It's pretty strange. And then to go after us, the lowest hanging fruit in the fishing industry, the recreational fishermen that have zero effect on the population of fish. Adam, you go out this weekend on your multi-day trip and you go bluefin fishing and you have 5 guys on the boat. How many bluefin are you allowed to have?
We're allowed to catch 10.
Okay.
We're allowed to catch 10 fish.
Yeah, 10.
Super angler.
10. Gang, think about that. He's going to go out there and see schools of tons and tons of bluefin. And to think for 1 second that taking those 10 out of the water has an adverse effect of the population of the bluefin, they're going after the wrong thing. Urban runoff and the California sea lion are the only 2 problems we have out here. But Adam can tell you, he's out there looking at these fish every day. What does that Omni look like when you find those schools of bluefin? How many tons of bluefin are you seeing?
It's hundreds of feet, it's hundreds of feet of fish, width and depth, right? So how many fish could possibly be there? We're talking about, I don't know how many fish are in the Southern California bite. I mean, is it 1 million? Is it almost it's hundreds of thousands. It's got to be of tuna that we have. And technically the science says that they are coming back, right? So why and they almost put them on an endangered list though about 10 years ago, even though the population seems to have reached a healthy state. Silly to not be able to harvest more of them.
Well, regardless, why take them away from us?
Yeah.
I mean, I understand the 2 fish limit because really, who needs more than 2 200-pound bluefin? What are you going to do with it? It doesn't cook good. It doesn't freeze good. You can eat it raw, and then after that, it's kind of they cook up like a dirt clod. But stop trying to close it, gang. We don't have an effect on it in any way, shape, or form. And you said that the science showed that the fish was coming back and that the numbers were better than ever before. That same thing happened with the rockfish, Adam. And I don't know if you like to rockfish. We never talked about that, but I do. It's like one of my favorite things to fish for. And they just took that rockfish depth limit away from us. They just took that away from us yesterday. Now we're back to fishing at 300 feet or less, where they made a big thing where we could fish deep. And that was like, everyone was super excited, but you could still only drop 2 hooks. Even though right before my father passed away, there was a science report that came out that said the cow cod came back bigger, faster, and better than they estimated. They beat it by 30 years. And then they still don't let us catch cow cod. And if we do, we have to release them back down to the bottom. Remember that conversation you and I had at the CCA dinner?
So sad. Yeah. Descending a cow cod seems like just a waste of time, right? Just a waste of a fish, right? Waste of a resource when somebody could have enjoyed eating that fish. It's not like guys are catching a ton of them. I'm sure you could go target them and be good at it. But but why descend a fish just back to the depths and kill it when it could have been consumed? You're just sending it back down there to be eaten by a lobster or a starfish or whatever else is going to eat it down there, right? Yeah, pretty silly regulations.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty sad to think about that. And then this giant windmill operation that's going to go on out here. We got the windmill guy coming back. Well, they're wind turbines. Let's not make it all fancy, use the windmill thing. It's not a windmill. It's a wind turbine. And they already did it. They sold 300 miles of square miles of the Pacific Ocean to the windmills, which is pretty crazy, to the wind farms or whatever you want to call it. It's crazy the things that they're doing to us today, Adam, just to stop us from fishing. It blows my mind.
Yeah, they want this clean wind energy, but if you look and see what's happening on the East Coast right now, that clean wind energy is killing the right whale, right? I mean, how does it make sense that you're gonna it just doesn't make sense. These environmentalists, thinking they're doing something good, but the adverse effect is actually much worse.
Yeah, it is. It's crazy. It doesn't make any sense. There's no science anymore. Everything's emotionally driven. And you're out on the water every single day and you're seeing that ocean, that Pacific Ocean off the California coast, pretty damn healthy right now, right?
Very healthy right now. Yeah, very healthy. The healthiest I've seen it, since I was a kid, really. Maybe some aspects are different. We don't have as many sand bass as we used to have, but for the most part, that ocean's pretty healthy. There's a lot of bait, a lot of food sources, and we have a lot of pelagics that are visiting us every year now and spending a lot of time here with us, right? I mean, look at the Dorado fishing the last couple of years in California. Incredible.
Yeah, and the amount of bait fish. I believe the bait fish kind of tells the story. If the bait is living in our zone, that tells you the water is super healthy for the bait. It's spawning in our waters. It's coming. It's creating this giant biomass of food for all these pelagic tuna. Well, you see these giant schools of anchovies on your Omni sonar or in your gyro stabilized binoculars when the tide goes slack and everything floats, and you're like, where did all these I don't know. This is what goes through my mind, Adam. Where did all these how'd they get here? How did they swim through the gauntlet of all the fish to get in these massive 100-ton schools of anchovies?
Yeah, they're living here. They're living here and they're thriving here right now. Anchovy and sardine and mackerel. We have a lot, and flying fish. We have an abundance of bait in our system right now. In our California bite right now, and it's the fishing is good because of it. Right, the dinner bell. We've got a nice restaurant out here. A nice buffet for them to come sample.
Yeah, that video you showed me the other day over there, we won't say where, but at San Clemente Island, the amount of flying fish, I've never seen anything like it before. That was absolutely incredible. There was so many flying fish. It looked like a giant biomass of squid floating on the surface. But then you look a little closer on your picture and there's flying fish flying everywhere because you hit them with the spotlight, and they were just zooming all over the place. Plus you look down in the water and all you saw, as deep as you could see, was flying fish.
Yep.
That's pretty cool. That's a pretty good thing.
Cool. We may have landed on a spawning thing, it may have been a very special day or a special week, right, when we saw those. But there's a lot of flyers there. They're doing good. They're doing great.
And they're a clean water fish. They don't like dirty water. They don't like filthy water. They're a clean water fish. So that tells you the ocean's pretty dang resilient, and it's doing great, gang. So you got to turn off the news, quit listening to all that garbage because it's just noise. There's guys like Adam that are out on the water every day, and Justin and Pablo and Al and all the guys that work with me. They're seeing what's really going on out on the water, gang. Don't listen to the news. Most of those people that are reporting have never even been on the water. They don't even know. They heard from their sisters, brothers, aunts, cousin that, oh my gosh, everything's dead in the ocean, which is the farthest thing from the truth. Just like that beautiful calico bass you caught on the beach. That calico bass, gang, you would think if you saw this picture in real life, not listening to me and Adam, just he posted this thing on out there for social media, you would think he was at Cedros.
Yeah.
Or you would think he was at San Clemente Island. You sure in the heck wouldn't think he was on the beach in Laguna.
Nope. Nope. Nice to see. Yeah, it's nice to see. Those things are so fun. That day, I bet you I caught 25 bass in 2.5 hours. Population's pretty healthy, just between two little rocks, right? Pretty healthy population of fish. And I bet you I lost another 15 or 20 in that same period of time. So you can imagine how healthy they actually are, how healthy the population really is. If you know where to go, and certainly the time of year too, right? Like they're spawning right now. So they're in big groups. And if you know where to go, you can go have yourself a lot of fun.
And how you can tell that fish is a spawner, and that's a big boy. That fish right there is a boy. And the reason we know he's a boy is if you look right underneath of his eye right there, that cheek is gold. When those cheeks are gold like that, that's the boys. They're in the spawning mode. Now, if it was a little girl, she would be white-faced. Her face right underneath her eye would be very, very white, and her belly would be super white. That's a big old boy. And the reason I think you got him is because he's in the spawn mode. And I don't know about you, Adam, but when I'm spawning, nothing matters. The only thing that matters is spawning, baby. And I'm going to go spawn, and I'm going to have some ice cream after I spawn. Then I'm going to bed. Yeah. You got to get him while he's spawning. That guy was fired up. Look at him. Look at those golden cheeks, baby.
That fish swam about 4 feet off the rock and boiled on my sardine. And the boil it left was the size of a yellowtail boil. That fish was pretty cool. Pretty cool to see the bite, on the surface, and yeah, pretty special fish to catch that fish this year. Super happy.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because one of the most addicting things about fishing for those bluefin is that bite when they blow up on your flyer, right?
Yeah, that's why we do it. There's nothing better than a flyer bite, nothing better than visually seeing a fish eat your bait. I mean, that's a lot of fun. It's the best kind of bite you can get.
And you've seen it in PV, you've seen it down here at the Cape, you've seen it all over the place, but it still fires you up like you've never seen it before. I don't care if you watching it on the Omni and you're watching the flyer go out there and you're watching, it's about to happen. And when it happens, you lose your mind, right? You're just as fired up as you were the very first time you ever saw it.
That's right. That's what makes us go back for it, right? Because it's so exciting when it happens. We work hours. We work tirelessly just to get a few of those opportunities a day where we see a fish come out of the water or chase our bait. But yeah, to see them eat is a lot of fun.
It's all about the bite. I did that show with Michael Folks. We talked about on that show that the history of sport fishing. It's all about the bite. He interviewed a bunch of us. We all talk about the number one thing we want to bite. We just want to bite. All I want is a bite. You go green bass fishing, you want to bite. You go calico fishing, you want to bite. You go bluefin fishing, you want to bite. Then he interviewed Frank Lepresti, and he asked him, and all Frank wants at 79 years of age is he wants a bite. That's what he wants, a bite. We fishermen, man, we just want to bite. What happens after that? There's only two good parts of fishing: the bite and when you gaff them. And the middle part sucks, because that's where all the bad things happen. You lose the fish, the line breaks.
All that part's stressful. Yeah, the beginning and the end are just joy.
Oh, yeah. Absolute joy. It's so fun. And it was fun to have you on the show today, Adam. Thank you very, very much. We went half an hour. We went over a half an hour, but like I told you when I asked you to come on, me and you sitting here talking, we could talk all day long. We love to fish, and it's all about fishing, gang. And we'll definitely bring you back on. Cubbies, thank you for watching. And everybody else, Steve Duncan, Dave Burris, all of you that watched today, Jeanette, Dave, every single person, Tim Ogilvie, Darren and his son sent me a message just now. He's watching the show while they're fishing Point Loma, and it's wide open calico bass. Wide open right now while they're watching.
So fun.
Yep, and another one of our guys, Ron's over at Catalina, setting that long point, and he's in a wide open, best calico bass bite he's ever seen. He's got 5 fish that he's measured for the Star Tournament. Those are 5 calicos over 18 inches. And he's sitting when listening to the show, catching bass after bass after bass. And these are guys that just love to fish. and they're having a great time. So thank you all very much for watching the show today. Adam, I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your busy life.
Thanks for having me, Dave. Really appreciate it. I'd love to come back anytime.
That'll be good. We'll bring you back for sure. Everybody, thank you very much. Check out Promar Ahi USA. They're a huge supporter of your saltwater guide. Also, gang, hit that like button, subscribe button. It all helps. It all helps. The algorithm, everything. If you like what we're doing and like what we're presenting, share this with your friends. Everything helps to drive us along. We're only getting about 12 to 13 million views a month right now. I'd love to get that to 100 million. Help me out, gang. We only got 800,000 followers. Let's get me to 1 million by the end of the year. I need all of you to help me, gang. And I'm going to keep doing my live podcast Monday through Friday at 12 o'clock, bringing in great guests like Adam. I will not disappoint you, I promise. I'll not bring in any duds, nobody that's not into this. Everybody we bring in is way into fishing, and that's what it's all about. So thank you all very much, and I'll see you tomorrow.